Good afternoon. Welcome to the Westport Board of Health, May 15th, 2023 meeting. I'm calling it to order with an announcement under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20F. This meeting is being recorded. And if you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we will begin with the written report from the director. Any questions on that?
None, Madam Chair.
Okay. Okay, and then we'll go to Matt for your updates.
Okay, start with the pump reports. Everything was, I reviewed them, they all look good. There was nothing that stood out as being an issue. Director approved plans, 44 Old Harbor Road. We have a project new construction on a 67,518 square foot lot for 4 bedrooms utilizing a Geomatrix and a Advantex system, and it's been Concom reviewed. We have a repair on 690 Old County Road on a 61,390 square foot lot, 3 bedrooms, utilizing a Quick 4. It's been through Concom. 190 Highland Ave, 3-bedroom repair on a 40,205 square foot lot, utilizing a stone bed. And a 3-bedroom repair on a 63,598 square foot lot on 10 Lawrence Ave, utilizing a stone bed. And they've all been Concom reviewed.
Okay.
This is the question with the revised upgrade.
Yes, there was a typo. They're all repairs, except for the first one's new construction.
Okay, okay.
And the first one would require the 2 times per year total nitrogen unless more frequent required by
You're right.
DEP. Okay. Okay, I would entertain a motion to endorse the plans approved by the director.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Thank you.
Great. Animal control, Nick is back from vacation. He came back over the weekend, was on call. Did a lot of catching up today on some calls, but he was making his way through what he missed in his week off. Just very busy. Tonight, before the Board of Selectmen, is our request to post for a part-time animal control officer, and hopefully get Nick some help over there. Transfer station was really busy. We're in the time of the year now where people start buying new stickers and everything for the next fiscal year. So it's been very busy with that. It's been just busy in general. But the guys down there are doing a great job, and Chris over at Highway has been helping us out with the repairs on the vehicles and the heavy equipment when needed. So thanks to those guys for that, and also them been helping us with coverage when needed. So again, thanks to those guys for that. Otherwise, there's a possibility we may not be able to open with one person. So
Right.
we would not be able to open with one person.
Right. Okay, that might be in our future. Okay. Then let's move on to other business. First agenda item under that is to unappoint the retired town clerk, Bernadette Oliver, and appoint the new town clerk, Kristen Stinson, as the burial agent, special agent for the town of Westport.
So moved.
Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye, that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay. We will move now to board member updates. Plenty of time. Donna?
We've completed 2 mental health awareness events, and we have one more tomorrow evening at the middle high school at 6:30, called promoting parents and infant emotional well-being, perinatal and postpartum support, which will be given by myself. One of our speakers is unable to attend because of a family emergency, and Dr. Michael Yagman, who's an expert in the field of pediatrics and pediatric and child mental health. So I'm really looking forward to hearing his presentation and the world of expertise he brings. And that's it. It was posted in the Herald News, and it's been posted on several email sites, including Massachusetts Pediatric. There's an association, so it went to all the local pediatrics offices as well. So hopefully we'll have some from the pediatric offices come.
Great. Thank you for all your work in promoting mental health awareness and events to deal with that. I know I attended one on reducing stress, and I found it really good. I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much. That was on Saturday.
You're welcome. I needed it too.
Yeah. I learned a lot of good strategies. I appreciated her presentation. Phil.
So I had two things. The first thing is that last week, members of the Watershed Alliance reached out to me because they had been in contact with legislative aides for Representative Schmid and Representative Markey because Rodrigues, because the Alliance was interested in seeing whether there was an opportunity to clarify how the septic tax credit was going to be implemented, because it wasn't, as we know, it wasn't the governor's budget. The House had done something, I think had just adopted it the way it was, just in terms of the adding additional funding or allowance for the credit, but the Alliance was interested in seeing if the eligibility for the credit could be expanded in ways. So I sat in on a conference call or a Zoom call that the Alliance set up, and there was some interest in, by Senator Rodrigues' aid to see if some language could be put together. So there are two kind of key pieces to it. One is right now that the statute only allows the credit for failed cesspools. I think we've talked about this. Mm-hmm. So I suggested that could be redacted, could be struck, but it could make it apply to other failed systems, non-cesspool systems, non-conforming systems, because the aid was concerned kind of on behalf of what DOER, Department of Revenue, will think about, and what the budget has to project is, well, how much will those cut tax revenue? Mm-hmm. And so we have a good handle on the number of cesspools, so we can kind of quantify that. But if it went to all non-conforming systems, like if you could do it for all non-conforming systems, it's kind of an open. So anyway, we talked about that, and then also there's the other provision in the statute ties whether or not a system is basically in compliance or not to the 1995 DEP regulations. And that kind of precludes any potential for future tax credits in the event that the DEP's initiative moves forward on requiring people to upgrade with nitrogen-reducing systems. So I gave them some suggestions. I made it clear that the board hadn't talked about it. This wasn't a Board of Health position. These were just some of my ideas. Mm-hmm. They just needed to take it from there. But it seems that there's some potential to move forward on that. So we'll just have to see.
Thank you.
The other thing was that as a result of an email that I received about there being a suggestion or an indication that the Infrastructure Oversight Committee wanted to have the board attend a meeting, I just went to sit in as a spectator at the last meeting to see what it was that they wanted to talk about. If, why were they asking the board to, attend the meeting, and which they are now, and officially there's going to be a request to go out for the board or representatives of the board to attend the next meeting. And there were, two representatives who were really, kind of focused on almost all aspects of our nitrogen reduction activities over, both implemented through our regulation and through, the maximum feasible compliance policy. So, at some point, we should get together, or at next meeting, whatever, and, talk about how we want to talk about those issues and how we want to do that there, and, maybe ask for some more clarification from their end. But the other interesting thing that came out about this was it clarified for me that the Route 6 project is kind of being described as basically a spine that is going to go down, that phase one is this spine that is going to, go down Route 6, to where it intersects 88. And there's no intention at this point to to connect with the neighborhoods on either side of Route 6. There's just simply, not enough money to do that, and they're still at the point of trying to seek, this is really the planning board who's doing this. It's under their auspices that the actual development is going forward, and they're the individual or the town representatives with the select board signing off that are now requesting grants, federal grants and other state grants. But it was, made it clear that, at this point, the plan only includes properties that would abut Route 6. So there may be some residences there, but I think for that stretch, it's almost all commercial. There is a apartment complex that's right near Fall River there, the Edgewood Towers, I think. Anyway,
Edgewater,
Edgewood Apartments, that might get connected. So I think that might help us, or I think that topic of discussion related to how cesspool upgrades related to the sewer project, it just provided some perspective on that. Just in terms of that does not at all seem, there's no timeline for that kind of connection to happen, so.
Phil, is there a timeline for when they think they're going to begin the process of construction?
So when I asked, not at this meeting, but in another context, Jim Hartnett and I were talking about it, and he said, well, somewhere between 5 and 25 years. It really all depends on getting the financing, that they need. They're very advanced in the design part of it, and they are seeking, I think they're planning to come before the Concom. They've got like 95% design on, on the various, on the pump stations, on other elements of the project. So they're very advanced on that, and I think that they're trying to see if, in working with our congressional representatives, whether there's federal money that can come in at this point to grant money that can carry them over to the next step. So.
Have to wait until after June 1st to see.
Yeah. So anyway, but then we should, as I said, circle back and figure out a little more about how we want to do our piece at the next infrastructure meeting. And I think there were some people at the meeting today who were kind of questioning why the Infrastructure Oversight Committee should really be looking into all the issues that got raised. But it is going to go forward, so.
Did they say anything about the next phase, like beyond Route 88? I mean, I assume that.
I could look at my notes, but I don't, it's a little bit of people who are very familiar with the project talking inside baseball.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that I caught that in my notes, exactly where they were.
Well, I know we'd wanted to reach out to
On
them
that.
about the timeline, as well as stormwater, so, I don't know if that, stormwater's probably not under infrastructure, but.
No, it isn't. I think we should, I had talked to Matt about this. I think that we should do that on a separate track, because one part of the infrastructure, part of it is almost policy in a different way than the stormwater is, which is very technical. It's going to require someone who is very familiar with stormwater and the various stormwater regulations to really advise us about how our regulation kind of fits in. And so I had suggested to Matt that he and Mike Burris initially, the planning director?
Planner, yeah.
Yeah,
Planner, whatever.
yeah, just talk about it, because the planning board has a consultant on board. They have the authority to hire a consultant. It's something that we really don't have, we don't have that authority and the money to pay for that necessarily. But I thought, anyway, so that's what I suggested to Matt initially, rather than us go to the plan, because I think everyone agrees it's a good idea, but I think the next concrete step needs to be talked through at Matt and Mike's level, is what I suggested to Matt. He may have a different opinion. I thought initially, because I can read the regulation, but I have no idea, or very little idea, what I would go in and change and how I would change it, and still protect some of the interests that we're interested in protecting, while reconciling it with the broader approach that's been taken. I mean, just to say, like, the DEP stormwater regs exempts all single-family houses from having to do any stormwater management. We have a certain number of square feet, and you have to do very complicated plans. And, we didn't adopt it, but we inherited it, and there are some good things that come out of it. But, so bridging that regulatory gap in a way that makes sense is beyond me to do.
Well, I don't know, I don't want to speak for Matt, but I don't think we have any in-house expertise on the technical.
That's what I'm saying.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
We can partner with the planning board and sort of piggyback on them, that would be great.
Right, yeah. So, anyway, so that's where that is, I think. So I think Matt and I talked, I think he's just gonna talk to Mike Burris, just see what he thinks about it, and he may say, have a meeting, and we can have a meeting, or they may come up with a different strategy.
Okay. All right.
That's the longest update I've given in a while, isn't it? Sorry.
Well, that's fine. We don't have, in fact, I have a question. We don't have the minutes from last week. It wasn't on the agenda. It was just.
No.
Okay. And speaking of infrastructure, I sort of after the fact want to note for the public that we have a failing infrastructure here at the Town Hall Annex. We've had septic problems recently, and the end of last week, power failure, and so the offices couldn't function, and it's sort of one more example of the constraints that the town is under in terms of maintaining its ability to provide service. Apologies to those who were inconvenienced when the office had to be closed Thursday and Friday, and thank you to Nancy, who had to sort of jump through some hoops to be able to post the meeting and get the packets ready without having access to computers and copiers and stuff in the office. So Appreciate that. Okay, we still have a couple minutes till our first appointment. Let me just check in topics for the next regular meeting, or do we want to try and schedule a working meeting for some of the topics you mentioned, Phil? What do people think?
I think it's a good idea.
Okay, so we can think about that, and maybe come up with some dates next week. Also, just a reminder, our next meeting would normally be on Memorial Day, and we're going to reschedule that to Thursday, June 1st, and I think everybody agreed we could start that one at 3 o'clock. So that'll be June 1st at 3 p.m. And I don't know, Matt, do we have any unanticipated items that we need to talk about today?
No.
Okay. Should we try and schedule a working meeting? Or do we want to wait and see?
Well, we got 5 minutes, should be able to get it done in
I
5
think
minutes.
it's a good idea.
Let me suggest, next week.
Next week.
Um,
Wednesday, the 24th is fine for me.
Morning, is that what you're talking about?
Anytime Wednesday on the 24th.
Does that work for you,
It's
Phil?
wide open.
No, I'm sorry, what was that again?
May 24th is for a working meeting.
May 24th.
It's a Wednesday.
Okay. That should be okay. Wednesdays are usually good for me.
How about 10 o'clock?
Does that work for you?
It does not, I'm at a seminar all day out,
Isn't that?
the annual conference, the
Oh,
annual
never
conference is
mind.
that day in
In
Foxborough.
the,
Yeah, me.
yeah, so I'm booked into that.
Oh, okay. Did you manage to register?
I did.
Okay, so that was
When I was
one
looking
thing.
at it, I was hesitating and saying, wait a minute, that date rings a bell. My phone is parts known, but not in the pocket, so.
Okay. So that was one of the things Nancy couldn't do while we were without power. So just, you can submit for reimbursement for that. Okay.
Yes, I will.
So
I
let's.
didn't have to pay in advance,
Oh,
I don't
okay.
think. They didn't
Monday
ask
I
me to
could
pay in
do,
advance, so.
Monday the 22nd, I could do after noon, anytime afternoon.
What do you, Matt, is that
The 22nd,
say 2 o'clock?
well, that's just Monday after this weekend, I'm off that day.
Okay.
So you guys can have it without me, just
Mhm.
record it, don't hold it up on my account.
No, I think it's better if you're there. Okay, how about Thursday? Oh, we have the South Coast Collaborative meeting.
Yeah,
Friday, the 26th, which is the day before the long weekend.
Are you off, Matt, on that day?
You're off on that, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I could meet, it would be earlier in the morning on the Tuesday or the Thursday. It would have to be like 9.
Tuesday, the 23rd, 9 a.m., does that work?
that works.
Okay,
Okay.
so May 23rd, 9 a.m. That happens to be my dad's 98th birthday.
Oh, maybe we shouldn't meet on that day.
I'll be seeing him later. Okay. I think we're close enough. Anything else? Anybody else has any other topics or agenda items? No. Not at this time. We'll figure it out for next week. Okay. I'm going to call a 4:30 p.m. Hearing or extension request for Jenny Jansen, 651 River Road. This is for an extension on a septic system upgrade approval. Is there a representative?
It's June.
Would you like to come to the table? Turn the mic over. So you can tell us why you're here and what you're looking for.
Well, the house was built in about 1952, and it had a collection point and a leach field,
Okay,
which was better than the older house, which had nothing but a septic.
okay.
All right, it's time to do something about that.
We don't disagree.
I didn't think it would. Now, let me think. My late husband died in 2016. And it took me a while to clear out the things. I was living in Virginia. Now, my mother left this house to 7 people, which is something you should not do. So I bought my mother's share, I bought my sister's share, I bought a niece's share, and a nephew's share. So it is now down to 4 people, me, my 2 sons, and a nephew.
Okay.
And over the holidays, 19 and 20, I packed up, sold the Virginia house, and in January, I think I paid all these people for the other portions of this house up here. And then we had the pandemic. So I went up to Vermont for the pandemic and stayed there until about August, and then came down here. In October, I had a gas leak in my house in New York. They came and shut down the gas. For the next 15 months, I had no hot water, no gas cooking, and no gas heating. And every time we did something that the utility company wanted, they changed their minds. So this went on forever. And in the meantime, I was living there. My tenant, one of my tenants' lease was up and he moved out. A tenant above had moved out just before this happened, got another place down the street. And the people in the top who'd been there 25 years decided to sue me because they couldn't cook without gas. Now, they got a hot plate within 24 hours, less than 24 hours.
Okay, let
But
me,
you would think that somebody that you'd had a relationship with for 25 years would have been decent about it. Well, so I had no income.
okay, so that's why you're
So that's,
postponing, you had to postpone your septic repair.
I couldn't do anything. And then
Okay.
I had to make all these repairs to get things up and running again. And I'm
So,
working it up, but I'm not finished yet.
okay,
So-
so you have a permit that you're asking, that expires soon, and you're asking for an extension?
Yes,
Okay, and you've explained that you have financial
yes.
challenges that
I think I do.
have caused the delay. Okay. Let me turn first to Matt for a recommendation, and then we'll, the board will discuss it. Okay.
Okay. Just from the research we've done, the plans that were submitted to us in 2015, and nothing was done, but they just resubmitted new plans. They didn't get an extension, they just resubmitted new plans in 2020, and by the time, at the time, everything was stamped and signed off on, the plans that she has in place now will expire in August of this year.
Okay.
The system is in failure because it has a metal tank. There is no real Title V that I could find on file other than what's in Wendy's notes here, that's saying the septic's in failure and there's a metal tank. I don't know the status of the metal tank. I don't know if it's completely deteriorated or not. Really, only way to know is maybe get a Title V inspection. But still, the system's been in failure for quite a while.
The upside of it is that the house hasn't been used a lot in the last few years because of others. So it's not, had to be, it hasn't been disposing of a lot of things in the last
Right.
3-4 years.
But as,
Yes, it needs to be fixed.
yeah, the plan indicates that there's a steel tank, and those are automatic failure criteria, and this was, we want to see this fixed. But once it's in failure, that's a concern that we can't let it go too long. So let me open it up to the board for questions or comments.
Well, I mean, it's within, I mean, she's making the request, prior
Timely.
to the expiration of the permit, so
Right.
I don't know if, in the absence of that information, we would just extend it for 2 years.
I believe Title V only allows a one-year
Oh,
extension.
okay, so there you go.
At maximum. I'm a little concerned because of the failure, it meets the failure criteria, that maybe we should think from like 6 months from August. But I'm okay with a year.
And I was thinking the same as well, because it has been in failure. Are you planning on being there this summer?
Well, I'll be there a part of this summer, yes. Now, the house adjoining, I mean, the house just to the north of us is my cousin's house. And they have it rented for, I think, most of the summer. So I'd prefer not to do it in the season when people are here.
Okay.
My only reservation about the 6 months is, given the season and just given how busy people might be, whether it can actually, she can actually find a contractor and get it completed and get a certificate of compliance in 6 months. I don't know. And I don't know what your
From
financial
August?
situation is.
Well, I'm
It puts them
thinking
in
of,
February.
Yeah, like beginning of March, February, March.
the water is generally turned off altogether
Yeah.
from November until April or so. So I was hoping to be able to do this in November.
Right.
Well, that's-
But my New York City property taxes are approaching $80,000 a year.
Wow.
So that is another problem I have to deal with.
Okay, well, I would then make a recommendation that we grant a one-year extension. And hopefully you can do it in November, well within the 1 year.
I would hope so.
I would suggest that you start looking for, lining up a contractor sooner than later and being able to schedule it in the fall,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of activity, so demand is high, so just getting things set up would be a good idea.
Right.
Okay,
But I could shoot my mother when it came time to put in a well, because we were on the well from across the street until they sold. She put the well in my cousin's property, not in her own. I mean, isn't that wonderful?
yeah, that's the
So is
challenge.
there a motion to extend 1 year?
I think you just made that motion, right?
Sure.
I'll second it.
Motion has been made and seconded to grant a one-year extension for septic repair at 651 River Road. That will bring us to August 1st, 2024, is that correct?
No, because it,
I thought we would do it a year from today.
Okay, a
We
year
could do
from
it a
today.
year from,
Okay,
a year
Okay.
from today.
okay,
Huh?
so,
Yes, a year from today.
okay, I'm sorry.
Either way, 1 year from now puts it right in the middle of the season.
yeah.
And we don't want to do it in the middle of the
Right.
season.
No,
So
but
either
you're-
way, it's either this November or next
Yeah.
November, which puts her over the 1 year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so, okay,
okay.
so, the one-year extension is to May 15th, 2024.
Is what?
To May 15th, 2024. So you're hoping to do it in November, and that's where, that sounds like it would be an ideal time for abutters and, when it's not active. But you have as late as May 15th, 2024, as soon as we
May
vote.
15th of 2024. Okay.
You'll get a letter to that effect.
I will. Where will that get sent?
To the address that's in the assessor's record.
651 River Road,
I don't know.
I would think.
They have a street address and then a mailing address, whatever.
Well, I
the-
think the street and the mailing are the same.
Where would you like it mailed to, ma'am?
Yeah.
Where would you like it mailed to?
Won't you give us an address you want it mailed to?
Well, when is it going to come?
In the next few weeks.
Yeah.
All right. But out of curiosity, could you tell me if there's another address?
The assessor's record that I have says it's care of Stephen Culhane, 3 Monroe Place, Brooklyn, New York.
That's my son.
Is that an address you'd like us to use? You can give us another address, just
Use River Road,
651 River Road, okay?
because that mailbox is checked and I will be back,
Okay.
and so on and so forth.
Matt will make a note of that, and then we'll send the notification to 651 River Road, okay?
My mother lived to be 100, so you see.
Okay, just to confirm, we need to vote on that. All in favor for the 1 year extension to 5/15/24 for 651 River Road? Aye. That's unanimous. Okay, thank you.
No, thank you. Can I ask a question?
Sure, quickly, because we have more hearings.
Yes, nitrogen, what is that all about? And is,
That's a long
Oh, that's
discussion.
a loaded question. It's a long question. So nitrogen is a source of nutrients
Yes, yeah.
for plants and
Yeah,
so
yeah.
on. When there's too much nitrogen in the ground or in the water, it causes algae bloom,
Eutrophication and all of that.
eutrophication, excess nitrates, because it forms nitrates in your drinking water, in your well, is unsafe. The Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection sets a limit of 10 milligrams per liter as a safe limit. Anything above 5 is of concern. So if you're concerned about nitrogen in your drinking water, you should have your well tested.
right. Now, does that add an exorbitant?
Oh, to have a denitrif?
Yes.
If you're doing you are not required to in your case, but if you choose to voluntarily, you should get a quote from an engineer about what that would involve. It's probably 10 to 20,000, maybe more.
How much can I expect this to be without that?
Again, every site is
Rough, just, I won't hold you
can't-
to it.
Yeah,
You have experience of this, I don't.
Yeah, well, it depends. Every site is different, and I know your plan says you're moving your well. So,
Well, the well is higher up.
yeah, well, there's a cost with putting in a new well and so on. So that's something, again, why you should start sooner than later is to engage an engineer, or a contractor. If you're going to do this plan, if you're looking at doing enhanced treatment, you could talk to an engineer to get some quotes. There are different systems that vary in price significantly. Based on I'd have to look at exactly what your current plan, it includes, I think, chambers, right? I have no idea what those cost. So that's really something we can't address today.
Do you have to re-evaluate the land and the rest of that?
If you chose to upgrade your current plan, you'd have to have a revised plan submitted and approved by the Board of Health but the perk test is still valid, so there's data that they can use. But again, all of this is something you need to talk with an engineer on, okay?
Well, you see, if I hadn't had this disaster in New York, I would have done the whole thing.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I would have done it a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming in. You have a 1 year extension, and if you have more questions, you can make an appointment in the office to get some rough feedback. But your first step really, and on our website are lists of engineering firms
I have
and
that,
contractors
yeah.
and so on. So you can reach out to them, or maybe your sons can help you figure that out.
No.
My
My sons have their problems and they don't want things
Okay, we
from
won't
me.
go there.
No.
All right,
So
thank you
we
very
don't
much.
get them involved.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm going to call the 4:40 PM discussion. This is for 17 Reed Road, a failed Title V inspection by the Board of Health. Property owned by Family Property Team. Is there a representative here? Hello, come on up. Are you Jason?
I'm Jason.
Hello, Jason.
Sit right here.
You can sit,
Yeah, okay.
yep, sure, that's fine. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to explain your circumstances, why you're here.
Okay.
I'll ask for a recommendation from Matt, and then we'll open it up for questions from the board.
Okay. So I purchased the property in November 2022. The previous owner was a horse owner, so there was a lot of horses on the property, which created a lot of nitrates. When I first bought it, I was trying to assess what was going on, so I got a well test and a septic test. I didn't know that there was a lot of nitrates because of the horses, so since then, I fixed the issues with the well. It was high in nitrates. I got that to a level that's below 5. And then initially, my septic had passed based on the system, but the nitrates is what, after further review is what failed it. So,
And when you say you fixed the, can you explain how you fixed the nitrates?
filtration system?
On the well?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, basically the nitrates were from the horses, so it wasn't because of the septic. So I'm thinking by default, by me fixing the water issues, it should negate the failing of the Title V.
Okay, thank you. I'll turn it to Matt.
So you put a whole house filter on, or did you just put one at the kitchen sink?
I put a reverse osmosis in.
It's for the whole house?
Yeah.
Okay. So, does that make sense of why the nitrates came down the way they did, plus with the lack of horses on the property and the manure and everything that was surrounding that well helped. I don't have a problem for what he did, good job.
Thank you.
Okay, we open it up for questions or comments from the board?
Who took the water sample?
It was the Analytical Balance out of Middleborough. They came every time they came and took it out themselves.
So the most recent one is 428, and that's the one that is non-detached.
Yep.
Or-
Is the house currently occupied?
It is not occupied at the moment. We are just finishing renovations now.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, Phil?
No,
I do have two more questions. The Title V inspection that was submitted indicated a plastic cover on the inlet needing to be replaced. Has that been done?
Yeah, all new covers. Yep.
Okay. And has it been pumped? Because the
It
last pump record was from 2017.
It has not been pumped yet.
Okay.
I can do that if that's something.
Well, it hasn't been occupied, obviously, since November, since you purchased it, but we don't know what the history is prior to then. So I don't know if would you recommend pumping at this point or wait?
It's been 3 years, you should have it pumped.
Right, of course.
So every 3 years, West Forward requires a pumping?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So what is the pleasure of the board?
So this would be a motion to find that the system is no longer in failure? Is that how we would phrase it?
I'll turn to Matt for
Just have a
technical.
quick question, I'm sorry.
I just had so it is what we're being asked to do to make a determination that the system at 17 Reed Road is no longer in failure?
Yes.
So that's what I would move.
I have a question. I'm sorry, were you looking to put an accessory apartment above the garage? Is that still happening?
No, that's not happening right now.
Okay.
And I would probably need a whole new system.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm not doing that.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
So, yes, that's what's being
Okay.
asked.
Okay.
All right, so I would move that the septic system at 17 Lee Road be determined to be no longer in failure.
Second.
A motion made and seconded to determine that the septic system at 17 Reed Road is no longer in failure due to the upgrades. All in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. And then can you make sure you get it pumped,
Yes.
within a month or so and
Of
submit,
course.
the pumping company will submit the records. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Good night.
All right.
Okay. We are very close. You can slowly saunter up, Mr. Rodericks.
abutters here that I'm aware of, no abutter notice. Do you want me just to sit right here and we'll talk about the
Yep,
plan?
you can sit right
No,
there.
it's right
Did you
here's
bring
fine.
the new plan?
Good,
Yeah,
all good
good,
right
yeah,
here?
yes.
Okay, so I will call the 4:50 PM hearing for Kevin Santos at 24 Greenfield Road. This is a 3-bedroom pair using a stone bed and a singular 960DN. We have some discussion about that, but I will turn it over to the representative, Mark Roberts, for...
Good afternoon, Mark Roberts, Analysis and Design Engineering. I'm here representing Kevin Santos, the owner of the property at 24 Greenfield Road. Existing conditions are a stone and pipe system, currently in hydraulic failure. There's evidence of ponding in and around the tank and around the leaching system. D-box was exposed and basically filled with effluent in several of my visits there. So we're going to propose a replacement system beginning at the building sewer discharging out of the home underneath the concrete patio, crush and abandon the existing 1,000-gallon tank, install a nitrogen 960DN system providing nitrogen reduction. We are going to be pumping up to the stone and bed system. That stone and bed system is 18 by 24. We've got all of our setbacks to property lines, wells, etc. on the property. The one waiver that I am requesting is given the location of the building sewer underneath the patio. I was not able to maintain the 12 inches of separation between the high groundwater elevation and the discharge pipes of the singular and the pump chamber. So my waiver is requesting that that be reduced from 12 inches. And Phil, I know you asked the question, so I just did the math. We're about 4 inches now.
Okay,
So the code says keep at least an inch. We've got about 4.
all right.
With the closest pipe to the assumed groundwater table elevation. And I think that's enough to
Okay, that's enough to get us started.
get us started.
I will turn over to Matt for his report.
So I had talked with Mark today about just a couple of design calculations on the plan. Because of the size of the system and the reduction, the system was actually going to provide 457 gallons per day. So I asked Mark to kind of scale that back closer to 330 because it essentially gives somebody enough for 4 bedrooms. Mark, he sent me an email, said he was able to scale it back, correct?
Yes, what I did do is, and what I did do is in terms of the SAS design criteria, so the leaching system, because I preferred to see the size, given the surprisingly good perk rate I got on the properties. I'm familiar with the area, the soils are poor there. I got a good perk rate, so I was a bit conservative in sizing the new field. There are deductions that are allowable in the remedial use for the IA system, which is up to 50%. So what I did is when I provided the system capacity provided, I used the full 50% reduction. Though in the notation, I had indicated that I only used the 30%, 30.6% reduction. So what I've done is with the general notes on the one plan I have, and was going to pen and ink that for the design criteria, I actually showed that with the 30.6% reduction, that does give me a 3-bedroom system. So the system capacity is now shown in the design criteria notations as 330 gallons per day, where instead of rounding up to the 50% reduction, I included more specifically the fact. And generally in the past, what I do is I say, I'll take the 50% reduction. In this case, I choose by design not to include that full 50% reduction. So that's how I've addressed the matter, Matt.
Thank you. This is a repair, and there's no increase in flow, so technically it doesn't require denitrification, but Mark is putting it in, DN system.
Okay.
But he's kind of bouncing back between the general use letter on the DN provides for denitrification and a remedial use, which it's kind of crossing paths there. From our conversations with DEP, general use If you want the D-night credit, you can only use the general use language. You can't cross over to remedial for both. But Mark had some guidance from Singular. But either way, I think it's a plus that it's put in the DN system. Whether on paper it's getting credit or not, it's still a DN, and you're gonna get that extra recirculation for the nitrates. So it's a good thing.
Yeah, but this is a small lot, so it would need a deed restriction anyways, correct?
Gonna need a deed restriction.
We were
Yes.
fine with that, yes, we discussed that.
Yeah, okay.
Concom, right? There's no-
Need Concom.
Okay, any other questions from the board? No?
I move that we approve the plans for 24 Greenfield Road owned by Kevin Santos dated May 2nd, 2023, with the variance of reduction in the requirement of the 12-inch separation between the inlet and outlet pipes of both the tank and the pump chamber and the high ground water table. I think you said to 4 inches. And the conditions of a 3-bedroom deed restriction, Concom review, and a hold harmless.
And obviously compliance with all the IA stuff. And we won't, because it's not, nitrogen, doesn't qualify formally as DN, we won't require the, do we require the, we won't require the total nitrogen testing. It'd be good to have it voluntarily, but
Yeah,
unless it's required under the remedial use.
I think
Approval.
if you're gonna try to use it as a DN, then it's up to you and your clients if you wanna get it twice a year tested to see if it's functioning. Right, you're putting in a DN, you might as well see if it's operating correctly.
I believe, first off, the O&M document, which has already been signed and filed at the registry, my customer is very proactive. Unusual, but we're good with that. I did speak about the cost associated with having the effluent sample taken twice a year. So I've included that already, and so he's been briefed on that, and that is in the O&M that's signed. And I believe that would be either something we would do because the customer wants it versus
Right,
doing it under your bylaw
right,
or your regulation and getting it into Barnstable.
right.
So the presumption there is we are going to Barnstable with 2 effluent samples. over
Once
2
you're
years.
in an O&M situation that requires reporting to either us or our designee, in this case, our designee is Barnstable, so the reporting would go to Barnstable. Yeah,
And that's the way it's
Set up.
noted on the O&M, so I just assume leave it be.
leave it be, okay,
Good enough.
we're happy with that. So we have a motion made and seconded.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Roberts.
Thank you so much.
Good day. Okay, never mind. Mr. Trinidad, thought of that.
We good?
Yeah, we're good. I just didn't remember people walking through the, you know.
Thank you.
just- The waiver of the 12, I mean, it was all stated, I just didn't.
You want me to pop in and notate those in the
Yeah.
office? and-
Yeah, tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
So whatever in the next couple of days, and we can get those in.
Sure.
And what I'll do is I'll leave you this hard copy that's got the notations and stamp.
Okay, good
And
enough.
I'll take the other copies we've got. I think we're waiting for Concom as well, correct? You didn't see it on any of the,
Yeah, no, he didn't stamp it.
I'm surprised. Okay.
Unless you wanna take the plans with you now and just drop them off tomorrow.
You got all 5 of them in there?
And we do.
Is the whole package there?
Well, we don't have the one. There's one upstairs in the clerk's packet.
I'll just swing by in the next day or so.
Okay.
And see the girls in there, and just put that one, it's really just a one-line change on the
Okay.
SAS criteria that's gonna satisfy what you have asked them to do.
Sure thing.
Can I just, maybe just revise the motion to say the plan dated May 2nd as annotated,
Oh.
just so we have it for the record?
Yes. Has annotated.
As annotated, just, we know you've done it already, but just so that the record shows.
Annotated, and it would be on the plan revision A dated today, 15 May.
Okay, did you get that?
Got
We're-
that,
We're just,
Yeah, I got a copy of that plan here, the
Yeah.
revised one. revised.
Yeah, but
Just
for
want to make
Bob.
sure, Bob, that has that.
so tweak the motion to add as annotated 515.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you, folks. Good day.
All right, thanks.
It's May 2nd, but it's
2nd,
today's date.
As annotated 515. Okay, I think we're close enough to, next. I'm going to call the 5 PM discussion, septic extension, system extension request, Scott and Jody Holmes, Lincoln Avenue, proposed plan expired 4/30/2023. Come on up. Hello. So you have an opportunity to explain your circumstances, and I'm going to turn to Matt, and then we'll open it up for
sure.
questions.
So I know you have the letter.
Yep.
So on May 5th, unbeknownst to us, our contractor went to pull a permit only to be told that it had expired, which we were unaware of, or we would have filed for an extension, or just gotten the permit in time. Just had no idea. The house is like 95% done. We were waiting because where the leaching field is, our subcontractors wouldn't have been able to get around the house to the basement where most of their work is. We just had no idea. Yeah, yeah, so, I mean, the house is almost finished. We had no idea that it could even, SciTech did the original plans. They are no longer in business. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I mean, we've got all our permits and our inspections, and we've had all our rough inspections for electrical, plumbing, gas, all our building inspections.
Okay, I think between the letter and what you've
Thank you.
articulated, you've explained your circumstances. I'm going to turn to Matt.
Sure. So I was apprised about this by, I think I had spoken with you on the phone maybe?
Yes.
And then that she had come in, I wasn't there, and talked to Nancy, and it's just that we generally treat all of these the same. They expire, and then we go through the process of getting new plans, and everything needs to get resubmitted. We've had many circumstances where this has happened, and we're just trying to be fair and consistent like we treat everybody else. We treat everybody the same, whether it's expired, 1 day expired, or 5 days, I think in this case, maybe.
We had an example earlier today of somebody who, first time it expired, she had to submit new plans, and then
Yeah.
submitted her extension beforehand.
Like I said, if we had any clue that that was even a possibility, I mean, after the fact, we've had all kinds of people give us advice about constructive action, and because the house was almost finished, and I
Okay.
mean, there was no,
Everything is underway, it's not like we're just starting.
Yeah.
It's been a process.
it's been a long project. I'm sure you're unaware, but it's been a 5-year project for us, so.
Okay, let me open it up for board member questions.
I don't have, I mean, I guess one question about it is whether or not the same plan would be accepted at this point.
Right.
You know, I mean, maybe I'm just talking about recent personal experience, not with septic systems, but in another context, but it doesn't seem like there is a lot of harm in this. I think if we have the discretion to extend it, I would personally extend it.
That's my struggle is it's new construction and a regulation.
So it couldn't be just extended, because because of Title V, the way that it's laid out for Title V, I guess, if I'm trying to understand what you're saying is, they could, if you wanted to keep the same plan design.
Keep the same plan.
But they
yeah.
would just have to resubmit new plans with new dates and a new application.
Same
What?
plan, is that what you're
Oh,
saying?
just with different dates on it, but that's if the
Right.
board
Yeah.
votes that way.
Correct.
But I was just
Yes.
trying to clarify
That's
what
what I
Phil was
meant.
saying.
Yeah.
So I understand, this has been, you're in a challenging position. Normally, between your engineer and your contractor, they're familiar with, permits never extend forever. They always have an end date. You didn't even apply for the permit, actually, in this case. So, understood that your engineer did not communicate that to you, according to your representation, and if I understand correctly, you don't have an external contractor, you're doing it yourselves, is that right?
For the septic?
No, for the
The
project.
build itself,
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah, so usually, developers or contractors would,
Well, the guy that's
We're
doing the septic
definitely
system
not
does
a
septic
developer.
systems all the time.
Yeah, he didn't know either.
yeah, but usually a contractor
Right.
deals with all the moving parts and would be familiar with permits that, expirations. I did look, I had a question, because I looked at the building application, and it indicates that there's a bonus room attached to it as part of the two-stall garage?
It's above the
Yeah,
garage.
above the garage,
Okay.
It's not finished.
Yeah.
Okay, so
It's
that,
not going to be finished. It's
Okay.
basically our attic, so we don't have to climb ladders.
just because this is a three-bedroom design.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and it's only.
Oh,
two of
yeah.
us. Our kids are all grown and gone, so.
They live across the street, that's why it's been a 5-year project.
Have there, this lot is like very big, 28 acres?
Yeah,
Yes,
30.
it was 30 something when we bought it, but we gave each of our kids,
It's 39 acres left.
yeah.
Okay. And that's that's staying that way?
That's absolutely
As long as we
staying.
own it. like,
Forest.
All right. So the big question for me is, submitting a new plan at this point should be subject to the current regulations, which would require, especially given that there's wetlands there and so on, but it is a very large lot, so
It's all gravel.
Um,
Gravel
yeah.
pit, the whole thing is gravel.
I'm torn. I did also, Matt, I forgot to ask you about this. I could not figure out the scale on this plan. Yeah, I couldn't find out where it was. I was trying to assess.
Mine is
Location's right
tiny,
here.
so I wouldn't be
No,
able
no,
to
no, no,
even
the
look
scale,
at
the
it.
scale of the map itself, like 1 in 20.
It's right here. So part of the plan, right down at the bottom.
Just plot plan.
Okay, 130. All right, usually they're 1 in 20, and it looked very condensed. I was trying to understand. Okay, thank you. Okay, any further questions from the board?
I don't have any, I'm just really torn between what the regulation is, and it's new construction, and so I'm not ready to entertain a motion, but I let somebody else make a motion on this.
I'm feeling conflicted myself as well, but, so we'll turn to Matt.
Well, I mean, I've already expressed my opinion, but you mean if I make the motion, that'll move you to make a decision? Is that-
We'll have a motion on the floor to discuss, so.
That's right.
If it's
Okay,
seconded.
well, so I would move that the plan, that we approve the plan for Lot 4, Sublot 4 on Lincoln Avenue, that plan dated 11/1/19. Let's see how I want to say this, that the design contained in this plan be permitted to be re-permitted.
Okay, the way that's phrased, I'm not comfortable seconding that myself.
I'm just trying to figure out what Matt was saying.
I think new plans have to be resubmitted.
That's what I mean,
In a new application.
in a new application.
So they'd be subject to a new application fee, new plans with the appropriate dates. And then
But the design could be consistent with the design that was.
if the board votes to not have them do D-night because of the new regulations, then yes, they could just submit the same design, if that's the way the board votes.
Okay. That was the intent of your motion?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so, is that something you're willing to second?
So if we approve the plan as is, or extend the, extend the permit for the plan, is that what we're doing? Because I'm
No, what we're
confused about
doing-
what the motion is on the floor.
So the motion would say, in this circumstance, we will allow the applicant to submit, treat them as a normal expired plan,
Okay.
and basically waive the requirement for compliance with the new regulation.
Okay.
But they would have to follow the normal, the plan is expired, you have to submit new plans, new application, et cetera. But we would accept the current design.
Okay. Do you get that, Bob?
Well, I have, you approve a new application, new plan based on the 11/1/19 plan.
Okay.
That's-
Just so it's more, a little bit more structured, I guess. So they would be required to submit a new application,
Yeah,
new application fee. They have to submit new plans essentially, but it can be the same design if that's what the board's gonna vote on. And that's all you would have to do. And then we would reapprove the resubmitted plans. And that can be done in-house. It doesn't have to come back before the board.
Okay. Then I could second that.
okay. Any further discussion? If not, I'll call the vote. All in favor of allowing resubmission using the existing design for map 32, lots 6, 8 through 15, sublot 4 on Lincoln Ave.
It's actually 32 now, so.
Yeah,
Well,
we
whatever.
have an actual address, but that's okay.
All right.
I'll never remember the numbers that you said.
Okay. For Scott and Jody Holmes, let's put it that way.
Aye.
All in favor, aye, that's unanimous. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in. Okay. I believe we have exhausted our agenda. We have a working meeting on May 23rd at 9, and our next regular meeting is June 1st at 3 p.m. Anything further from the board?
Just agenda items for the 23rd, so I'm just kind of, if you have to shoot me an email so I can get this posted by
Yeah.
Friday anyways.
Okay. We were talking about the whole sewer timeline and integration with our, is that
Oh, is that gonna be at the,
working meeting? You wanted to talk about how our response.
Well, there were, right, so there were, it had been, the idea had been circulating that we would have a discussion with the planning board about the relationship between our cesspool sunset regulation and the sewer project, and the Route 6 project.
Mhm.
And now the infrastructure committee has kind of seemingly to step in, and I don't, I'm not sure what the, what did they say? I'm not really sure what the portfolio of the Infrastructure Oversight Committee is. I don't know. To me, the authority rests, so to speak, in the planning board, but I don't really know. So Um, But it was, I was trying to figure out what it is that we would feel comfortable in saying to people who are, might ask this question, like, what's gonna happen if? And not say something that was inconsistent, way inconsistent with what the planning board might be planning, but now understanding that it, maybe that issue is somewhat off the table because of how they're describing what this phase one project is gonna be, which it's not going into the neighborhoods that I think, when
It's
you look
it's
at
sort
the
of
map,
a moot.
when you look on,
Almost moot.
it's almost mooted out, but, so
Okay.
that was just kind of, that was my motivation. But maybe this ties into what I was gonna suggest, and maybe leave for you and Matt to decide, which is, and I think we've had working meetings where, people have come and spoken to us.
Mhm.
And I was wondering whether we would consider inviting, I believe Maury is the chair, Maury May is the chair of the Infrastructure Oversight Committee. And I just thought we might get to that second question I was talking about, which is like, how broad is this discussion going to be? Because it seems that listening to the comments, it might get broader than, so I was thinking maybe you and Matt could talk about and decide whether or not you thought it was a good idea to have, Maury attend all or part of that and just say, we want to figure out with you what this discussion is going to be about.
Okay.
And so that we're
I-
not pushing back. We define it before we know what we're talking about before we go in there. I mean, I'm not quite sure, for example, if someone says, I don't really like this this maximum feasible compliance policy. It's like, well, what does that have to do with the Infrastructure Oversight Committee?
Right.
I mean, happy to talk to you about it, but, like, what is it that is really on the Oversight Committee's agenda, and let's figure it out and talk about that, which might then be this issue of what happens if the sewer goes in and then people have put in,
Right.
and say, if that's what you talk about, we can talk about that. And just have a conversation there,
Would-
right
would
there.
it-
All right, it seems like then this might be premature, this meeting, because I have no idea what the I don't even know who's on the infrastructure committee.
Yeah, well, I don't know everybody's name. Bob Daler's there from the planning board, Maury May is there, Manny Soares is there, the gentleman who was the head of the zoning board of appeals, whose name I can't remember now.
Roger?
Roger
Yeah,
Menard?
Roger Menard, yeah.
Yeah, Roger Menard was there. Jim Hartnett sits on it. And then, Steve Olet sits on it.
Mhm.
And so maybe that's everybody except one person who I didn't recognize at all.
Okay, and what was their agenda, what were they?
So
what were
they were,
talking about?
yeah, so they were talking about the Route 6 project, the issue of, that was predominantly it. They talked about the MBTA regulations regarding zoning for higher density housing associated with the rail project, South Coast Rail project. Again, I'm not,
Mm. You're not inside.
there wasn't a published agenda that when I looked at I don't think they had a published, maybe they do, anyway. I was just going
Yeah.
to listen to what I wasn't a full report back. Let's see. And so, but a fair amount of the substantive discussion was what was the status of the Route 6 project. And then at different aspects of it, the permitting of it. The consultant there kind of gave a report about the different aspects of it, and then, you know, costing stuff, how the grants were being characterized in terms of the environmental benefit. You know, there's this interbasin transfer stuff, you know, because sewer, you're taking water that would, you're taking water that's being used in Westport and you're sending it to Fall River. And that idea is that activity is regulated under a whole different set of
Okay, so,
rules. So it was mostly about the Route 6 stuff.
okay.
But then this more broad thing came up, and then after that I really left. So I don't, you know, after the thing that I was interested in.
Okay.
But maybe anyway. So it was a suggestion of maybe having either Maury come to the meeting or having a conversation with Maury about it.
Okay, well, why don't we keep this
Yeah,
more tentative
yeah.
and figure out, because I was reacting to what I thought I heard you say about, during your presentation,
Mhm.
about we need to figure out kind of our position.
Right.
And this seems a little bit more, I don't think we're ready for that yet, because I don't know what we're responding to.
Right.
Well, that's I think yeah, exactly.
Can we ask them for some questions that they would like answered, so we know what, because I just have a concern that if there's a piece of what we're doing, which is the requirements for new construction, D-Night, if it becomes an attack on that and not focused on how does this relate to the infrastructure? Like how does,
Right, yeah.
so that if they
Yeah.
can provide a list of questions that we could respond to, because I'm not for.
But I don't think there's not even been any outreach to, I mean, I don't know what the they're not reaching out to us.
No, well,
So what-
I think now, I think that the reason that they are now is that, you know, there's someone on the committee, maybe now who wasn't on the committee previously, who has raised this issue. But,
Okay, if it's an individual person's agenda, then that's
Yeah.
a different ball of wax.
yeah, I just don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, and it was, you know, but I think, I know that, you know, we've been talking about it more in relation to the planning board about how to deal with what might be the reality of people upgrading their cesspools in a timeline that could intersect with what we first thought it was a bigger thing, you know, and that the way we had dealt with that in new construction is that we had, you know, the useful life piece of it. We don't really have that for the cesspool piece of it.
I don't think we can do that under Title V. We can't, because it says you have 60 days. Unless you do, unless it's an IA system, if sewer comes down, you have 60 days to join. And I don't think that I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean,
We can have that discussion.
So it was more trying to, you know, kind of figure that out, because I do think that, or we had talked about, you know, well, maybe we should be cognizant of that, and until the sewer plan got clarified, you know, we should be I don't know if not as advising people, but I'm not quite what the right word is, but basically not forcing people to do it until this becomes clarified. I mean, I guess I just don't want I would like I wouldn't like the board to be in a position of people feeling that they got bad or incorrect advice and that they spent a lot of money and did not get, but the environmental benefit was not there. That is, we're trying to convince them it's an important environmental thing we're doing, and then these worst case scenarios. So I put in my new system, and then 3 years later, I have to hook up to a sewer and play betterment, but I've already just spent $30,000 or $25,000 for a cesspool thing that is now, it's a waste. And so that's why we were trying to figure out what the strategy is. Maybe it's irrelevant now because, or
Timeline seems.
timeline really,
It's too
timeline's
late.
open-ended, they don't plan to do this other thing, so that we just clarify that and say, look, and
Well,
I don't, so I'm not proposing the answers,
Right.
what the answer to the thing is, and partly, yeah.
So, a follow-up from that, from our last regular meeting, not the infrastructure, we had said we should reach out to find out, what is the sewer timeline from the planning
Right.
board?
Right,
Um,
exactly.
And so, you found out some information through attending the infrastructure committee meeting, which gives us a better sense, but we don't have any official
Right,
formal
right. I mean, I
response.
don't
And so
think.
that's what we're
right,
trying to get,
right,
in
right.
order to then have a discussion about
Yeah.
how do we integrate our recommendations with
Yeah.
that timeline, but we don't have that.
Right, I mean, I think if you
Yeah.
asked them how long would it take from the time that someone gave you the check to do the project it would take to build it, they'd have a very good answer for how long it would take to build the project. Right now, if you ask them, when are you gonna get the check, they have no idea. That's the problem.
Was there
And-
Was there some question about our grant and how our grant could support?
No,
Okay.
I don't, and,
The short answer to that is it could.
It could.
yeah.
It's not-
But
it's not
all-
allowed.
I mean, I think it's also clear that this project is not gonna, there's not enough, customers for the sewer to cover, based on betterments, to cover the cost of that. So they're gonna have to go to town and say, unless it's, fully granted, but if they had to go out for a loan, the whole town is gonna have to kick in to sign off on the loan. Anyway, it's, so there's a lot of unknowns, and I think, trying to understand what is known or not known, so when people come and ask us questions, we say something that is consistent with a joint understanding of us and the planning board.
Yes,
That was kind of the idea, like, we're
Okay,
just not out
so-
there on our own.
right. So I think you're right, we need to have more information and discussion with the planning board, before we can even formulate.
Yeah,
So.
and now this
so
new,
infrastructure committee
yeah,
is
yeah,
doing
yeah,
whatever they're doing.
there's a new sheriff in town, has come in and said, okay, now we want to have this conversation, and,
So we're not ready because we don't have anything from the planning board yet to have so
yeah.
I think probably at this point, the May 23rd meeting is very tentative. Unless we get something clear from the planning board in the next few days, it's probably premature to have that meeting.
So we were gonna, the May 30th was, I think, is their next meeting,
Uh-huh.
right? And that was, so we were gonna do it after that, so I was talking a little bit with Michael about it, Mike Burris. So maybe sometime in June, we could meet with the planning board. But I'm just, so what if we get a request to meet with the infrastructure committee, are we gonna decline until after we talk to the planning board? How?
I think we need to talk to the planning board first to
So,
understand.
so if we get an email, am I gonna be my response? No, we'll come after we talk to the planning board?
We're waiting to talk to the planning board.
Okay.
I mean, I don't,
Phil seems to be kind of, because he went and they talked to him about it and he's seen the agenda. I mean, I think if we see their agenda and we're on there, we should issue a response, just not
oh yeah,
not show
well,
up.
I don't have an understanding of,
Well, Well, I thought, yeah, I don't know. It will, well, there's people we could talk to on the planning board. I mean, we could talk to, I mean, we could have informal, you or me could have informal conversations with either, you know, Jim Whiten or Bob Daler. Bob sits on the infrastructure committee, and just kind of figure that out. I was trying to give and maybe you could have, you know, just have a conversation with Maury about it without a real commitment,
Yeah.
you know, what to do. You know, say, hey, you know,
So-
there's a lot of stuff that came up, you know, we're not, there's a lot of unknowns. We're just trying to figure out, you know, what's a constructive thing. One thing that we would want it to do is to sit down and talk to the planning board first and just see how, or if not, I don't know.
Well, it sounds like
I just don't.
Matt and Michael are having conversations, so let's let that play out and figure out, because I don't have a clear sense of what we would accomplish at the meeting on the 23rd at this point. So, I think we need to get more information to figure out what our next steps
So
are.
scrap the meeting on the 23rd for now, because you know, that only leaves the rest of this week, and it's a very full week. I don't know if I'm gonna accomplish anything with, you know, Michael, with how the week is, because the 23rd is next Tuesday.
Right, okay.
And I would have to get some answers from him and get everything posted by the end of the week on Monday, the end of the week, so.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's definitely going to be a negative reaction to some people on the infrastructure committee to decline to meet with them.
Well, we haven't gotten an invitation, so
Well, I know,
I'm not
well, not
understanding.
formally yet, but we know it's coming.
You think it's coming?
Yeah,
They
I
said-
think that, well, they voted to invite us.
Okay, okay.
Okay, so
That wasn't clear,
there was a
sorry.
vote taken to invite us. And I think that one topic of conversation we could have with Maury would be, okay, you know, what's the agenda for this discussion from your point of view? And he could say, I want these 5 things, and then we could say, okay, we need to think about that, because we think that should be more narrowly focused on the infrastructure committee and, you know, not why we're requiring new construction, you know, in places where it's not geologically appropriate, kind of thing.
Okay, so
Which
let's,
is, you know, that's the kind of.
I'm not saying we don't, but I didn't realize that they voted to invite us.
Yeah, no, they formally voted to, I don't know what the process is.
And for what purpose? For what was the topic?
Well, that is the part that is
It's not
not
clear.
clear. I
Okay,
mean,
well, when we get the
there are
invitation-
you know, there are things that they don't like, and some of those things, or put it this way, there are things that, in theory, could create contradictions between what we're doing and what's happening with the Route 6 project. Because potentially, you know, like if they got the money tomorrow and they said, okay, this thing's gonna be built in 5 years, okay? And so we don't want you pushing people to build septic systems, you know, upgrade their cesspools, because we want those people as customers.
Okay, but
But we don't.
what you said earlier, right now, I mean, we're just talking the spine and it's almost moot, so
Well,
yes.
yeah, that is, you know,
Okay.
that is true, but, so that would be, you know, part of, you know, it's like, well, Title V says the project has to be, sewer line has to be feasible, or whatever the operative word is. Okay, do you think the current, you know, that's like a policy decision for us.
Right.
Like, you're gonna tell us all this stuff, and then we're gonna, and
Yeah.
then we arguably would decide whether or not,
Okay.
you know.
So-
anyway,
so-
I think there's a lot of stuff swirling around.
There's a
and
lot
I would
of-
say, at this point, the
It's
May
swirling.
23rd meeting is, it's not clear that it's going to be,
Right. So just-
we have information to make it a productive
So
meeting.
just give me a heads up on that, but as far as, my suggestion would be to one of you reach out to Maury to get some kind of, if we do
Well,
get,
let's-
if the board gets a formal invite to that meeting, so the board can adequately, prepare properly.
Right,
for
so
the meeting.
let's wait and see what the,
I would,
we will react.
well, I would also, if we were invited, if we had a formal invitation, we could reply and said, we will be happy to appear, but we need these questions, and like, what is the purpose? What is the focus? So that we're not just going for them to, you know, say that they don't like our regulation, and we, you know, I just think
I'm not gonna make any assumptions about,
well, I don't want
Yeah.
to make assumptions, but whenever I'm called to a meeting, I want to know what's the reason I'm in the meeting and what am I going to be asked, like what questions I'm going to be asked. So you know, I'm not disagreeing with being
Yeah.
part of it or going. I'm
Right.
just saying that I think that we need to know what their intent is, what they need to know before we go, and then we can schedule a meeting and discuss.
right. So I think it makes sense to schedule potentially a working meeting, but we don't have the information now, and so next Tuesday seems premature.
So I'll keep it penciled in and fall back with you guys on Thursday, and somebody will let me know if it's a go or a no-go
Okay?
for the 23rd.
And we'll see what we've gotten, if
Okay.
anything.
All right.
Phil, you had asked, I'm sorry, I didn't have time to type it up, but
Oh, great,
that's,
okay, thank you. Oh, appreciate that, thank you.
Are we done with our business?
yes.
I'd like to move that we adjourn this meeting at 5:35 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous, thank you.